tier lists. I'm going to be away for the weekend, so you actually might be watching this video on the weekend while I'm away. So I'm trying to get some videos with slightly less editing, just so it's a little bit easier for me to schedule out a video this whole week while I'm away. So should be out maybe on the weekend, maybe Friday. I'm not too sure when yet, but we'll see. Either way, enough yapping. Into the tier list we go. We've got the 1 Elixir Skeletons. By the way, these ratings, so including this card right here, are not going to be based on the evolutions. They're just going to be based on the cards themselves. Because obviously, I could rate these like a B or an A just based off the evolution. But 1 Elixir Skeletons, I am actually going to put into A, maybe B tier. Honestly, I'm going to put them into B tier. Like, you just see this card in cycle decks all the time, and it's for a reason. They're just great little 1 Elixir thing you plop down. You can use them as a little distraction. They take out some stuff really, really nicely. Like, you could pop them on, I don't know, I can't think of anything right now, but, or actually, yeah, you could pop, if like a giant's coming down the lane, you pop your cannon down, or whatever defensive building, pop the 1 Elixir Skeletons down, the enemy's forced basically to either zap them or lock them, usually forcing out an overcommit on a spell with these 1 Elixir Skeletons. And like, yeah, they're in cycle decks all the time, and most of the time people use them without their evolutions. Yeah, B tier for me. Bomber, I'm gonna put in B or A. I'm gonna put him in B. I feel like lately the Bomber's fallen a little bit out of the meta. I still think it's a pretty decent card on its own, just a 2 Elixir splash card, which does serve a purpose in certain decks. You see it in Giant Beatdown, you see it in Goblin Drill, sometimes even in Elixir Golem, but I feel like you're seeing a little bit less of it now, and even a little bit less of the Bomber evolution, but I still think it's a good card. I certainly, as it's placed in the meta, counters certain things really well, counters Eagle really well, counters Goblin Drill really well, stuff like that. So yeah, putting into B. Regular Goblins, I'm going to put into D tier. You never really see the regular Goblins. I think it can be okay in certain log bait, but certain log bait is straying away from the regular Goblins. You see Goblin Gang, you're seeing Dark Goblin, obviously the Princess, and yeah, I like the regular 2 Elixir Goblins just don't seem to get enough value a lot of the times when you throw them down. Spear Goblin's going to put slightly above the Spears, or the regulars in C. I think I like the Spears better if you're going to run a certain 2 Elixir Goblin card, just because they target air and you can get some value out of them a lot of the time. And so, yeah, maybe just a mid-tier card. I'd even consider throwing them into B, but actually, you know what, I am going to throw them into B, because I personally like using the Spear Goblins a lot, and it's just good for like long and zap certain bait decks. I really like the Spear Goblins. I might, looking at this, I might even throw the Bomber down to C, because if I'm going to use a 2 Elixir card, I would prefer the Spear Goblins a little bit more, just because you do get that extra value out of the air targets. But next up we got the Zap. Again, we gotta make sure we're rating these cards based on the card itself and not the Evo. I really like the Zap Evo, but I think the regular Zap, honestly, I'm gonna put it as a B tier spell. There are certain spells that I'd rate above this Zap spell, which we're gonna get to very soon. However, I think it's in a good spot right now. The Zap, you're seeing a lot of people play Evo Zaps in their decks. You see it in beatdown decks, you see it in Law of the Hound even. Sometimes people going with the Evo Zap in that, especially because of the Inferno Dragon evolution. The Zap is just a good spell to have in your arsenal, and I think because of that, the Zap is getting run a little bit more, just because of the Inferno Dragon evolution. I might have rated the Zap in like a C in my last tier list, but I think it's a little bit better and people are using it a little bit more often. The Knight, I love so much. I think it's probably the best mini tank in the game at the moment. It's just the best all-rounder for 3 Elixir. Got a lot of health, very tanky obviously, and does enough damage to fight off a lot of different cards like Valkyries, Musketeers, certain, like even Dark Princes, stuff like that, and can even be enough for even tankier cards like a regular Prince. You'll have to play something else with the Knight, but a regular Prince, Bowlers, it's just a really good all-rounder. You see it in so many different archetypes. You see him in Splash decks. They've usually switched to like Boss Bandit and a bunch of other loggable crap. I've been going up against Logbait so much, by the way. But either way, yeah, Knight I think is probably, not probably, I think he is the best mini tank in the game. Very, very reliable. Archers, I'm gonna throw into B tier. The Evo archers are really, really good, and that's what's kind of brought the regular archers back into the meta. A lot of people are running Evo archers, but again, it's another one of those like chill, like 3 elixir cards that can get you a lot of value sometimes. And again, it's seen a couple different archetypes. You see it in Expo, and you see it in what's it called? Expo and E-Golem is the main 2 archetypes you see the archers in. And so yeah, very solid minions. I want to put down into C. There are times you do see minions in certain like giant graveyard decks, but honestly that's really the only time you see them in like high level Clash. Don't really see the minions. Like obviously you see them in like lower arenas a decent amount, just because it's like a very nice, reliable, fast air unit. But I think C tier is a right place for the minions, and honestly the minion horde will just jump to that. Is F tier, way too easy to get value on the minions. Like a Zap 2 elixir can completely counter a full minion horde, which is just ridiculous. So yeah, minion horde, not a good spot unless you throw it in like some kind of Zap bait like Sparky deck or something. But even then, you don't need the minion horde in your deck. There's better cards, especially a 5 elixir that you can run. I think they need to do something to the minion horde. Maybe make it like, either they gotta make it 4 elixir and make it so that it's like 5 minions or something like that. I don't know, they gotta do something to the minion horde because it's been bad for so long. Arrows, now call me crazy, but I think this is like a C tier spell now. They actually recently nerfed the arrows, so that has a smaller radius, and a lot of people have taken arrows out of their deck and replaced it with stuff like Log, Fireball, sometimes even like Rage, Zap. And so yeah, I'm not seeing too many arrows in decks anymore, even like Lava Hound, which is like where it's best at. And so I think it's like a C tier spell now. I'm not gonna put it in D tier because I think that would be a little bit excessive, but there are other spells that I would honestly rather run over the arrows after the radius nerf that it got. And there are some units that we'll get to very soon that have kind of climbed back into the meta because of the arrows nerf and have been really dominating on top ladder. Cannon, I'm gonna pop I'll pop into B. Honestly, I could even consider an A tier because honestly I feel like it's kind of getting inflated a little bit because of the evolution. I will pop it back down to B because the Evo, I think the Cannon Evo, even after the radius nerf, has been absolutely dominant. But I think even the Cannon itself is just so good. Can counter a Hog Rider just with 3 elixir, can counter a Ram Rider, and helps you against a lot of other win conditions like Royal Hogs, even certain tankier units like the Giant. And I think the Cannon is just such a good defense. If you compare that cannon up with like an Ice Spirit to even delay the win condition a little bit more, it gets you a lot of value, and it's seen in like Hog 2.6 still, and some other stuff that I can't think of at the moment. I think even Royal Hogs sometimes will run the cannon, but yeah, very nice. However, I think the Tesla is an A tier building at the moment. Sometimes even people run the Tesla without the evolution. I think it's in a really solid spot. I think it's currently run the most in Goblin Drill and Expo, obviously, but I think this is like probably one of the better buildings that you can run in the game at the moment because it's so good against like RG Monk, which is still super popular even after the Hunter evolution got nerfed to the ground. But yeah, Tesla, just because the Monk cannot reflect the Tesla shots whereas it can with the cannon. And so yeah, I think the Tesla is probably one of the better buildings you can run in the game at the moment, and I really like the Tesla. I think it's just very, very reliable. Obviously can target air and ground, and yeah, I like the Tesla. I think it's in a good spot in the meta. I always hate getting to the mortar because as a mortar user currently, I'm top I think currently top 4,000 in the world using mortar. And I love using mortar so much. It's like one of my favorite win conditions that is used in the game. But I don't think the mortar is in a good spot right now. I'm gonna pop it down to C. I would even consider putting it into D tier. I just think I'm a mortar one trick and then can use it pretty well. But there's just so many. Like the reason I'd say the mortar is like a C or a D. I'm honestly gonna consider putting it into D tier at the moment in this current meta is because Earthquake decks are so popular right now. You see Royal Hogs, Earthquake and Hog, Earthquake all over the place at the moment, and in metas like that where your opponent just has an Earthquake, it gets hard countered so hard. The only thing that makes the mortar really good is log bait is also very popular, and mortar decks I feel like are really good against log bait because they usually have a lock and other little units that can help with the lockable units. So it's saying that I might pop it back into C tier just because I feel like log bait is super popular as well. But yeah, I feel like the mortar just gets countered a little bit too easy, and especially here up against like Lava Loon and stuff, you're basically screwed like depending on certain matchups that you play up against. So yeah, I'm popping it down to C just because it has a special place in my heart. I love playing the mortar and it's like my main deck, but I don't think it's in the greatest spot in the meta at the moment. Barbs, I'm actually gonna pop into B surprisingly. I think the barbarians are like you don't see them too often. I'd say. I mean, you used to see them all the time in Lava Hound and even like RG decks sometimes. And I feel like people are starting to use the barbarians a little bit more. Like I said, you don't see them too often, but they're starting to get a little bit of an uptick in how many people are using them because I think people are starting to realize that this card is very solid against a lot of different units. They absolutely rip through giants, they rip through hogs. There's certain other win conditions that are really good against Royal Giant, Monk deck. These barbarians will carry you. And so I'm putting it in B. I think it's heavily underrated right now, and a lot of people just aren't running it. They're preferring to run other, 4 or 5 elixir units that are on the ground, like a Valkyrie, or maybe even a Knight or a mini P.E.K.K.A, stuff like that, guards, right? But I think the barbs have potential to be very good in this current meta. It's just not a lot of people are using them because they're preferring other units. But again, barbs heavily underrated. If you have a card, if you, like the Valkyrie or something like that, like a mini tank that you find maybe just isn't getting enough value, you want something with a little more DPS, a little bit more punch that can maybe even get you a little bit more value, definitely try out the barbarians. I think it's in a good spot right now. The Tombstone I think is another C tier. I'd definitely rather the cannon over the Tombstone and maybe even pop it down to D. I think he was in a good spot last season because the Evo Witch was so freaking good, but after the Evo Witch nerf, I'm definitely noticing a much smaller amount of people using the Evo Witch still. And yeah, I think like it has its place. Like sometimes people will run it in Lava Hound, sometimes people will run it with the Evo Witch in certain graveyard decks still, but definitely a lot less people using it now that the Evo Witch isn't as strong as it once was. So I'm gonna put it down to D tier. It doesn't get as much value as it once did. Musketeer, I'll pop into C. I do sometimes see Musketeer getting used in Goblin Drill, in mortar decks. Like I use the Musketeer in mortar, but it's another one of those cards that I just don't think is in the best spot currently in the meta. It's like very matchup dependent. Actually, not, it really isn't. I like the Musketeer a lot because it's very versatile, but it does get countered by quite a few different cards. Valkyrie, I'm gonna put the Valk into A. I think the Knight is better than the Valk, but I still think the Valk is pretty solid. Obviously does very well against Swarm, and with log bait so prevalent right now, I think the Valk is, especially in Lava Hound decks, which use it very frequently, and even Goblin Drill decks, I think the Evo Valk is huge, and just you don't even have to really run the Evo Valk. So many people run the Evo Valk at the moment because it's a very strong evolution, but even the regular Valk gets the job done a lot of the time. Hog Rider, I think I had this in S tier in the last tier list video, and I'm going to keep it in S tier because I think Hog Rider is still in such a good spot in the meta right now. Sorry about that little background noise, but yeah, Hog is in such a good spot in the meta at the moment, and it's continuing to dominate in top ladder. Like I said, Hog EQ is more popular than I think it's ever been, and it's honestly because I think you can just get so much damage a lot of the times if you know what you're doing in these Hog cycle decks that are just doing so well at the moment. Mini P.E.K.K.A. I'm going to put into D tier. It's not completely useless, but it's definitely not in a great spot with log bait being so prevalent right now. Mini P.E.K.K.A. is just, you literally never see it. I don't want to put it into F tier because I do think it has its place in like like off meta decks. Like sometimes you see it in like Goblin Giant, Sparky, but even then in decks like that, you'll see the Dark Prince with that combination sometimes, or other little mini tanks, right? So yeah, I don't know. Not the biggest fan of the mini P.E.K.K.A. I think it's a little bit too easy to counter. Next up is the Fireball. I think this is an A tier spell. I'd even consider throwing it into S, but there are certain spells. Actually, you know what? I'm going to reconsider and actually I will throw it up into S. I think this might be the best heavy spell in the game at the moment. Sometimes you see Poison get used in a lot of other decks, but I love the Fireball. There's times where it can completely bail you out of certain situations. Fireball is so good. I think it's, like I said, the best heavy spell in the game and gets the most value out of all of the heavy spells right now. Can get decent Crown Tower damage. It does very similar Crown Tower damage to the Lightning at the moment, which is pretty crazy, but yeah, Fireball is so good, and sometimes it's essential in certain matchups. If you're going up against Royal Hogs, you're going to need that Fireball. Certain other cards, I can't think of a at the moment, even like Sparky decks, sometimes you're going to need that Fireball. Decks using the Magic Archer, Flying Machine, even like if you're using, like going up against somebody with like a Goblin Hut or some other building, Fireball is very crucial. And yeah, Fireball's in a really good spot, especially after the Arrow nerf. I think a lot of people switched over to the Fireball in certain decks, and yeah, I love the Fireball. I use it a lot. I think it's in a good spot in the meta. Bomb Tower, I'm honestly gonna run this down into C, maybe even I'm gonna put it honestly maybe C. I think I rated this a little bit higher in the last season because Royal Hogs were so popular, but I have seen a slight downtick in Royal Hogs users and a huge uptick in log bait. And although this is good against log bait, sometimes it really just depends on how your opponent plays, because like a Dark Goblin can outrange a Bomb Tower, for example, and so can a Princess. And yeah, I don't know, man, like Bomb Tower is just not as good as it once was, and I honestly never see anybody using the Bomb Tower anymore. It's usually the Cannon or the Tesla, but I feel like that's mainly because they have evolution, so maybe a Bomb Tower evolution is in the cards soon. I'd like to see, maybe, I don't know if I want to see another building evolution, but I think it'd be kind of cool to see some kind of evolution based around this building to try and maybe get people to start using it again instead of the other buildings that seem to be like reigning strong on the meta at the moment, especially now that the Goblin Nut is 4 elixir. Why would you use the Bomb Tower ever? So you know what, actually I've just convinced myself to throw it down into D tier. Yeah, there's really no place in the meta for the Bomb Tower at the moment. I'm not going to say it's in F tier because it's not completely useless, but yeah, it's definitely in a bad spot. Giant, I'm going to put into A. I would even consider S tier. Honestly, I'll put it into A. I think it's another win conditions in a good spot. You see Giant Prince deck still doing very well, along with maybe even like the Boss Bandit. Giant Graveyard is still very much meta. I can't really think of too many other Giant metas, but I don't know. Giant you still see very much around, and yeah, like there's just like I like Giant. Even when I was playing the other day on a free-to-play account, a brand new account that I literally just started, and I was using the Giant a ton, and it kind of made me forget how much I used to love playing the Giant when I first started playing the game. it's just a really reliable tank, very fun to use, and it never really lets you down a lot of the time. So yeah, Giant will pop into A tier. Wizard is an F tier. No one can convince me that the Wizard is good. Like in lower arenas, sure, it might be okay, but when you start playing against higher level units and higher, skilled players, you never see the Wizard ever, and that's for a reason. There's way better 5 elixir range units and even 4 elixir range units. I'd much rather the Musketeer over the Wizard. Any day of the week, you'll even see the Witch get used because of that Evo, and yeah, there's just better cards and there's better evolutions at that elixir. Inferno Tower, I'll put the Inferno Tower into C, only because it's like another one of those buildings that is very matchup dependent. You still sometimes see people using it in like OG log bait with like Knight, Princess, Goblin Gang, Inferno Tower, Ice Spirit log, Rocket, stuff like that. So sometimes you do see the Inferno Tower every now and then, but I think because a lot of people are using the Zap now, because of the Inferno Dragon evolution, the Inferno Tower becomes a little harder to use, and I don't really see it too often, but you know what, there are times where you do use the Inferno Tower and you get a ton of value, because maybe your opponent's using a Giant, or a Hog Rider, or some other like one unit win condition that it's really, really good against, even like golems, although you don't really see golems too often anymore. But yeah, Inferno Tower, I'll pop it in C. I think there's better buildings at the moment that you can use, like the Goblin Hut. This is still S tier after the nerf that it got. It is still just so good after the rework, and even after the seemingly big nerf that it got, at least stat wise, it got a pretty big nerf. It is still unreal, by the way. Even after the nerf, you are seeing this in like quite possibly like every like deck archetype possible. Like I see it sometimes in Eagle, and you'll see it sometimes in Siege decks. You'll see it in Hog decks all the time, like Hog EQ decks all the time. Goblin Drill every now and then we'll use the Goblin Hut. It's just it's the best like defensive building in the game, in my opinion. Gets so much value so much of the time, and there's a reason everybody's still using it. I think it still needs some kind of tweaking or some kind of nerf, because they turned like literally F tier card into an S tier card, and it's just absolutely unreal right now. The Rockets, I'm honestly, like, this might be a little bit surprising, but I'm gonna put this into A tier. I definitely for sure had this lower in the last time, but the Rocket, I think you're seeing it a little bit more in decks that were maybe either previously using the Lightning, or were just lacking a little bit of punch in their deck, and so they've thrown the Rocket in. You see it in like Minor Balloon, Expo sometimes has the Rocket, and there's even people running like Rocket Cycle that I've seen, like with like Minor, Valk, Ice Wiz, stuff like that. In Top Ladder, I think this is another really strong heavy spell, especially after the Lightning nerf, because the Lightning was just way too good. Maybe not way too good, but it was just very, very good in the previous meta. And so yeah, I think people are definitely using the Rocket a little bit more, and I am seeing it a lot more often in high level decks, and high level players seem to be, getting this to get a lot of tower damage and a lot of value. The Pump, surprisingly, I don't know why, but I've seen the Pump a little bit more in Ultimate Champion for whatever reason. There's this Expo Pump deck that's going around, and I've even seen it in, I don't know what other decks I've seen it in. I don't know if it got like a buff or something recently. I honestly, my memory seems to escape me, but for whatever reason, I'm seeing Pump like used a little bit more. That being said, I still think it's maybe like a D or a C tier card. Like, I'm honestly even gonna throw it into D tier, because if you got the actually no, I am gonna put it into C tier. I feel like I had it in D tier in the last tier list, but I think the reason you're seeing it a little bit more is because the Lightning isn't getting used as much. So really the only few spells that get used the only few spells that you see get like obviously perfect value against the Pump is the Rocket and the Fireball, but I feel like there are a lot of people more so using smaller spell decks like Log Bait, for example. There's this, like, most of the Log Bait decks big spell. Maybe they'll have a log, maybe they'll have an arrows, but they don't have a big spell, so the pump works so well. Even goblin drill decks. Okay, up next we got the Bard Hut. I mean, obviously F tier, guys. I want to see them do some kind of rework that they did with the Goblin Hut to the Bard Hut, because I used to love you running the Bard Hut way back in the day when metas weren't a thing and whatever. I loved doing like some crappy spawner thing with like the Bard Hut and like the graveyard and stuff. I thought it was really fun, but yeah, unfortunately Bard Hut not in the best spot right now. Mirror is gonna follow suit. There's just no reason to ever use the mirror in decks. Honestly, there really is never a reason to mirror something. And for the extra elixir as well and the extra level, it's never worth it in my opinion. The only time the mirror gets back into the meta is when a broken card gets released, and so you just try to play it as many times as possible. And yeah, mirror is just an unhealthy card for the game in my opinion. Rage, I'm gonna pop the rage into C. I think the rage has its place in certain decks, like E-Golem uses it, certain Giant Beatdown uses it, even like Goblin Giant Sparky sometimes usually uses it, but I feel like there's usually sometimes switching over to the Zap now, because, I don't know, like, the rage can be good and can be really annoying sometimes to get you like a couple extra, like a lot of extra damage, but it's just I don't know, like, honestly, I feel like it may be better in B tier. It's the rage is a tough one. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but I feel like all the time it'll at least get you a little bit more value with the rage effect, if not with the damage. The rage effect is what helps you out a lot. So, you know what, I think B tier might be a little bit better. I think it is on par with the Zap at the moment. Skarmy, bro, if you're still using Skarmy in 2025, seek professional help. Why are you using the Skarmy? Especially when cards like the Goblin Curse exist now, it seems to be like ever so slightly getting used a little bit more every now and then in the meta. Don't use the Skarmy, I beg you. If you want a 3 elixir swarm card, use the Goblin Gang. Use something else like archers or a knight, or even like regular goblins or spear goblins. Don't use the Skarmy, I beg you. It's not a good card. Even the guards, oh my god, use the freaking guards instead of this, like another skeleton card. Don't use the Skarmy. It's bad. Trust me, it's bad. Goblin Barrel is an S tier win condition at the moment. Log bait, I think, is more popular than it's ever been, and there are so many freaking annoying variants of it that use like the Dark Goblin, the Wall Breakers. Even I've seen Suspicious Bush with like Boss Bandit, certain variants like that. Dude, I was playing ladder literally this morning, and I think I played 5 or 6 games. I think I played 6 games in total. Of the 6, I want to say at least 4 or 5 of them were log bait variants. And log bait is so freaking popular right now, and it's honestly, as a mortar player, I enjoy going up against it because my deck is really good against log bait. But I could see why, if you're using some kind of beatdown deck that maybe doesn't have the log in your arsenal or something like that, that doesn't just have a good counter for everything getting thrown at you, including a Goblin Barrel, it could be very, very annoying. Baby Dragon, I'm gonna put into like a C tier. Like, you really only see it in Splash Yard, but even Splash Yard doesn't really use the Baby Dragon anymore. I might even throw it down to D tier, because like, yeah, like that was its main thing, was Splash Yard and even like Golem Beatdown. But a lot of those decks have switched the Baby Dragon out for other cards like the Inferno Dragon, the Bowler, the Knight, you know, other little mini tanks like that that can get you more value a lot of the times. I think the Baby Dragon, although it's a splash card, sometimes it just struggles against like Swarm sometimes, you know. But yeah, the Baby D, not in the best spot in the meta right now. The Freeze, I'm gonna put into D tier as well. I respect the hell out of people that do use the Freeze, because man, it can win you games. Graveyard Freeze is super popular. Well, not super popular, but Graveyard Freeze, even like Lumberloon Freeze sometimes can be pretty nasty, and can like straight up win you games. But I don't know, it really only works in those two variants. And if you screw up with the freeze, like for the poison or the fireball, for example, yeah, you can screw up with those decks and get punished, but at least you can usually get value out of those by taking out some kind of troop, like maybe a flying machine or some zappies, something like that. You usually get value out of those. The freeze is a lot easier to screw up and set your opponent up for a counter push, so that's why I've got it so low, although it can be very, very good in certain decks. I'm gonna pop it into D. The Witch, I think it's also a D, bro. The Evo Witch is in a lot worse of a spot right now. The Witch itself, honestly, is just not a good card. The only reason the Witch has been used so much, obviously, is because of the evolution. But, you know, if you're just throwing down a regular Witch, you'll notice it's kind of a bad card. You know, like I'd much rather like an Executioner, even a Musketeer, or even Archers if you got some kind of ranged unit going in your deck. And especially because the Evo Witch got nerfed and really isn't as competitively viable as it once was. It's a D tier unit, man. Evo Witch can still be kind of an animal, but the regular Witch, not very good. Prince, I want to pop into A. I'd even consider S tier, but I think the Prince is just it's just pretty gross. Sometimes you really only see it in Giant Beatdown, maybe even Goblin Giant Beatdown, but in those decks, it's an absolute unit. It can be very dangerous if you don't have the proper cards to deal with it, and if you screw up, it's like it just basically not takes your tower, but it can do it like basically take like half your tower in one sitting. Prince is disgusting. Holy crap, there's still so many cards to go. I gotta speed things up a bit. Balloon, I'm gonna pop into A as well. Balloon, like you got Minor Balloon, you got Lavaloon, and that's basically the only two archetypes, but the Balloon is just so solid. Like air, like Lavaloon, for example, like most air units, excuse me, jeez, air win conditions have a pretty good time no matter what the meta is, because these cards just never seem to get nerfed ever in the balance changes, and sometimes people forget to put air in their decks, and honestly Balloon is one of those cards where it can obviously it can get you a lot of damage a lot of the times. Giant Skeleton, it's an F tier, bro. Don't be caught using the Giant Skeleton in 2025, bro. It's not good. Give the Giant Skeleton a little bit of love when the balance changes, Supercell. This card sucks. Like, very easy to counter. Sometimes it can get you value defensively, but I mean, if a Giant Skeleton bomb is getting to your tower in 2025, then you need to look at yourself in the mirror and realize that you just need to hop on Fortnite instead of Clash Royale, bro. This game isn't for you. Lightning, okay, so here we go. Lightning, after the balance changes, I honestly think is like a C tier spell now. The fact that it just doesn't do as much crown tower damage as it once did just makes it get so much less value, in my opinion. It's much harder to lightning cycle your opponents down because of that huge nerf it got on the crown tower damage. I think it was like a 30-something% nerf, something like that. Maybe it wasn't that drastic. I don't know, something like that. Maybe like 20%, something like that. But yeah, lightning, C tier. I'd much rather rock it. 100% would rather Fireball. In certain decks, it still can get you some really good value and take out like, you know, like a Witch or a Musketeer, as well as like a cannon or something like that. But it's just not as good as it once was, I think, and people are starting to wake up to that, I think. Expo, I think, is another A tier. I would consider S tier, but it doesn't get as much play time in the meta, although it's still very, very solid in the current meta. And especially after the like slight buff it got in like a couple seasons ago at this point, Expo's still really, really good, and you see it fishing in the top 10 pretty much every season for the last few seasons, I believe. So yeah, Expo, very, very solid. P.E.K.K.A, I want to put into B. I think it's seeing a little bit more playtime with like Goblin Giant P.E.K.K.A decks and like the Goblin Machine included in that, and obviously bridge spam using the P.E.K.K.A still, and you are are seeing people using this and its Evo a little bit more. I think the P.E.K.K.A is in an okay spot in the meta. It's nothing too crazy, but I do like seeing the P.E.K.K.A every now and then. I use it like a mortar bait deck, like I've said a million times, and I find it's a little bit easier to take out the P.E.K.K.A if you know what you're doing sometimes, but maybe a C tier, I don't know, like it's just a mid tier. It's a mid tier troop. I might pop it down to C, honestly, because yeah, it's like the P.E.K.K.A got like the Evo got a slight buff in the last patch. No, it's not the most recent ones, but the last one. But I don't know, like the regular P.E.K.K.A, I think it's just too easy to counter sometimes, depending on the deck you are running at the moment. Next, we got the Golem, bro. The Golem needs some kind of looking at in the next balances. I think it has been the meta for a while now, and I honestly am considering it as like an F tier. Maybe not F tier, I think that's a little extreme, but like definitely a D tier win condition. It's just not good. It's not good right now, bro. Too many units get too much value over the Golem, and although it's like the tankiest win condition out there, I just think there's better tanky win conditions like the Giant, even the Goblin Giant, that are just better than the Golem. I know Sneaky Golem in the pocket, that whole meme is like a huge thing right now, but I'm sorry, boys, it's not a good win condition. It just isn't. Right now, it needs some love in the next balance use. I think RG, I'm gonna say B tier. I would say S tier. I think I said probably S tier in the last change, but like I said, so the RG was super strong, and they actually listened to me. They said that I was saying for the longest time they need to nerf either the Royal Giant itself or nerf one or two of the cards that are around the RG, and they nerfed the Hunter. And because they nerfed the Hunter, you don't see the RG getting run as much. Sometimes you still do see that RG Monk deck with the Hunter and even with the Witch, but because both of those cards, the Evos, the Witch and the Hunter Evo got nerfed, you really don't see it. Those two cards paired up with the RG as much anymore, and it's kind of not evaporated from the meta, but it just gets used a little bit less, and so the RG is now, I think, a B tier evolution. I think Hog's in a much better spot. Giant, Balloon, Expo, all I think are in better spots in the meta right now than the Royal Giant. Three Musketeers will move on and just say it's an F tier. It's just, bro, who runs Three Musketeers in this year? Absolutely nobody. They nerfed them years ago, and they have not been meta since. Dark Prince, honestly, call me crazy, I think this is a B tier little mini tank. It can be pretty cheeky, and I've seen Double Prince kind of not really resurface, but every now and then you do see a little Dark Prince. I've even seen Goblin Drill players pick up the Dark Prince sometimes instead of maybe a Valkyrie or a Knight. So yeah, I think this Dark Prince is actually quite solid, and can be very punishing sometimes if you don't have cards to deal with it properly. Poison up next. I think this is like an A tier heavy spell. I'd much rather the Fireball, but I think Poison is also in a pretty decent spot. Like British Spam will use it, Graveyard sometimes uses it, but actually no, I screw it. I'm putting it down to B. I think it's still good, but like I think I definitely see the Rocket get used more than the Poison at the moment. And yeah, the Poison get you a ton of value, especially maybe if you're using like Minor Poison or some kind of control deck, something like that. But I think the Rocket's in a bit of a better spot at the moment in the meta currently. Not to say that the Poison isn't in a good spot, but I don't know. I see these two spells definitely get used more than the Poison. Princess, I'm gonna pop into like a B. Actually, I'm gonna pop into C. The only reason I pop into C is because it is really good in log baits and nothing else. I think if I want to put this up a tier, you kind of have to see the Princess and some other decks, but yeah, like it's legit only good in log bait. And so I feel like if you want to have the Princess a little bit like in a more healthy spot, you gotta see it in a little bit more decks than just log bait. And so I think the fact it's only in that one archetype, like yeah, it's good in log bait, but you don't see it in anything else. Next up is the Ice Wizard, guys. You really don't see the Ice Wizard too often. Actually, that's kind of a lie. I see the Ice Wiz every now and then, obviously in like Ice Bow, like Expo decks, and sometimes you see it. I've seen it in like some Splash Yard, and then even sometimes I've seen it with like a Useless seems appropriate for me. It's not bad. The slow effect obviously is what's quite nice about the Ice Wizard, especially if you're going up against maybe like some kind of beat down and you just don't want it to get to your tower. But yeah, it's okay. It's nothing too crazy. It's definitely a lot better than it was like a few years ago when it didn't have that slow effect off of drop. But the little spawn effect that it has is quite nice. The Fire Spirit, I'm gonna give it a B tier. I'm putting it on par with the 1 elixir skeletons. I've seen the Fire Spirit quite a bit actually being added into cycle decks. All of the spirits seem to get kind of passed around depending on the cycle deck. Goblin Drill is where it's most prevalent, I think, but I've even seen some Hog Rider players start throwing it into their cycle, like Hog cycles and even Royal Hog cycles. I've started picking up the Fire Spirit. I don't know why. I honestly, like, maybe it's because log bait is becoming super prevalent and it helps against like goblin gangs and stuff like that, but I don't know, Fire Spirit seems to be making a little bit of a comeback. Never used to be this good, but it's actually not bad. But unfortunately the Furnace is like an like another really bad building. They need to try and rework the bar button in the Furnace because, dude, especially if you're going against Hog EQ, the Furnace is actually useless. Like, it might be the least healthed building in the game at 4 elixir, and for it to be only spawning Fire Spirits, it's not worth it ever. Like, I'd rather the Goblin Hut a million times over. Even honestly, I know I have it in F tier, but I honestly think I'd even rather the Bar Hut if you're gonna run a spawner with your deck. But Furnace, yeah, it's not good, bro. The Furnace sucks. Guards, oh dude, I'm just realizing, like, every time I look down and see how many cards are left, I think I'm gonna have to start speed running because this video is gonna be it's like so long. Guards, I'll put in B. I feel like they were getting used a lot more a couple seasons ago, but now they've gotten a couple nerfs and they're still good. I still see them in certain decks every now and then, but not quite as dominant as they used to be. The Miner, I'm honestly gonna throw the Miner in. I'm considering B or A. I'm gonna put it into A. I think you still see it in Miner Control. Miner Balloon decks are doing quite well right now in the meta, and yeah, I don't know, Miner seems to be like always quite decent, even after that massive nerf it got a few years ago where it didn't do as much damage on the towers. I still don't think the Miner is that bad. Like, it definitely has its place in the meta, and Miner Poison is just a combo that will always be around, like, until the end of time. But yeah, Miner will pop into B. Sparky, I'm gonna put in D. Like, it only works in Goblin Sparky, or Goblin Giant Sparky rather, excuse me. And although I love the Sparky, I think it's a sick legendary. I think it's a cool looking card when you pop it down the field. It's just not all that good. It really isn't. Depending on the matchup, it can be very annoying to go up against. Like, I feel like Hog EQ struggles against Sparky a little bit, and maybe even some other cycle decks. But I don't know, man. Sparky, especially with a lot of people starting to use Zap, I think it struggles, man. I think it struggles a bit. Lava Hound. It's either an S or an A tier, honestly. I think the Lava Hound, I'm gonna put it into A just because I'm considering S tier, because Lava Hound always seems to do well on ladder for whatever reason. It never, like, even though the Goblin Hut is still really good, it's like probably one of the better air counters to Lava Loon. Lava Loon still seems to be so freaking good, bro. It's actually crazy how this combo, like, always seems to be in the meta no matter what they do, because they just never touch them in the balance changes. But yeah, we'll pop it in A. Lava Hound, like I said, if you don't have a proper air targeting unit in your deck, you're in trouble, and this will just get a ton of chip damage on your tower. But yeah, Lava Hound, pretty solid. We'll pop into A. Ice Spirit, I'm gonna also pop into A. Actually, a little controversial, but I'm gonna put the Ice Spirit into S tier. I think it's the best 1 elixir unit in the game. Better than the Skeletons, better than the Fire Spirit. skeletons. And even though the Ice Spirit Evo got a nerf, I don't think it was as drastic to the Ice Spirit's play like usage percentage as they thought it would be. And yeah, Ice Spirit's still very, very solid. Bowler, honestly, I'm considering S or A. I'm gonna pop it in A. I think it's a very solid 5 elixir card that you see in Splash Yard, sometimes Goblin Drill, like Giant Graveyard as well. Bowler's in a really good spot in the meta. It's just super spell resistant, very tanky, and gets a lot of value a lot of times. And yeah, Log is an S tier. I think it's probably one of the best spells in the game. I think the best small spell in the game. You get value out of it 9.8 times out of 10. I was going to say 9 times out of 10, but I think it even gets more value more than 9 times out of 10. 2 elixir, you can never go wrong with the Log. And if you're going up against Log bait, this spell is crucial. It's an essential spell in the game, and it is fantastic. Literally pushes back every unit in Clash Royale, and it's just so freaking good. Lumberjack, I'm gonna put it in C tier, bro. I like the Lumberjack as well. I think it's been in the game forever as well. I've really liked the look of it, but I think since the Lumberjack evolution got a nerf and made it a 2-card cycle Evo, the Lumberjack has not gotten as much play as it once did. You saw it, used to see it in like Giant Prince, Lumberjack, Boss Bandit. That was like a really massive deck that was going around and a lot of people were using. Obviously you'll see it in off-meta Lumberloon decks, but I don't know, man, the Evo is not nearly as good as it used to be. In fact, it's kind of a dead Evo, but yeah, I don't know, like the regular Lumberjack as well. It's just, it gets countered a little bit too easy, in my opinion. It gets countered a little bit too easy. It's pretty, it's just not, it's not very spell resistant. You can, get value out of it with the Knight, for example, or maybe even like an Ice Spirit and Skeletons. Yeah, Lumberjack, it's not that good. Ice Golem, I'm actually going to put into B tier, which might seem a little bit high for like a little 2 elixir mini tank, but Ice Golem can get you a lot of value a lot of the time. You can kite a lot of different things with the Ice Golem and get a lot of value out of even just popping it down to like some swarm units and putting them all either on one shot or taking them out. So I like the Ice Golem. B tier is where it's going to stay for me. Next is the Mega Minion, another card you don't really see too often. It used to be in Lava Hound all the time, and honestly even used to be in like Giant and Golem all the time, but since then I feel like this card has been subbed out for a lot of different cards. Inferno Dragon would be one of them. Bats, even Flying Machine. I feel like there's just usually a lot of better air units that you can put in instead of the Mega Minion. For that, I'm gonna put in like B tier, bro. When do you ever see the Mega Minion anymore? Honestly, I don't know. It doesn't really seem like that bad of a card as well, but yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of one of those cards that's fallen out of the meta, and I feel like it could end up resurfacing at some point if some kind of giant deck starts taking off with this Mega Minion. But yeah, right now, not very good. Inferno Dragon, I'm honestly gonna put into a B. I think there's a couple different archetypes that use it, like obviously Splash Yard. I think I've seen Goblin Drill decks use it. I think seen like certain Elixir Golem decks go in with the Eye Drag, and that might only be because of the evolution, but I don't know, man. Even the regular Inferno Dragon can get you a ton of value for 4 elixir, and I really like it. I think since this card came out, it's been a very cool staple for me. I used to run a triple dragon Lava Hound deck where it had both obviously the Lava Hound, the Inferno Dragon, and the Baby Dragon, and then dude, I miss those days playing that Lava Hound deck. That was a really fun combination to use. But yeah, Lava Hound will pop in B. Graveyard, I think honestly I'm popping into S tier. I think Graveyard is in such a good spot right now in the meta, and there's so many people using it. Less like for example with the Evo Witch and the Evo Inferno Dragon, like I said earlier. But you even see Giant Graveyard with the Bowler, and like paired up with the Freeze sometimes. So there's a bunch of different versions of graveyard decks going around, and I think like most pros just hate the graveyard so much because the RNG factor about where the skeletons will spawn. But yeah, I don't know. Graveyard I think is just a really solid win condition at the moment for that S tier. E-Barbs, I'm honestly popping. I'm considering F tier, but I'll pop them into D tier just because I know they're like mid-ladder menaces, and sometimes like people that are a little new to the game struggle against E-Barbs. But yeah, honestly, there is this Goblin Giant Sparky E-Barbs deck that I have seen every now and then running around in Ultimate Champion, and yeah, like I guess they can be good against certain decks like RG. They'll actually like straight up hard counter. Even like if you're using like Splash Yard, sometimes you can pop down E-Barbs on the bowler and get a ton of value against Giant. They're quite good, like Giant Prince. But I don't know, man. You like they're E-Barbs. Like they can get countered pretty easily for 6 elixir. Tornado, honestly, even after the massive nerf that it got, like the damage nerf where it doesn't quite do as much damage, like it, for example, doesn't kill Spear Goblins, I still think it's an A tier spell, man. Like it's just the biggest get out of jail free card in the game. You can be down a ton of elixir, go in with a massive push, and your opponent can throw a Hog Rider down with a bunch of other crap. You use a Tornado to bring the Hog to the King Tower, and maybe like a Nice Spirit or Skeletons or something like that to clean up, you know, some of the support units, like maybe a Musketeer or Firecracker behind it, and you're completely fine. So yeah, man, Tornado is still so good in this game, and you still see it quite often, honestly, even after the big nerf. We'll move on from the clone. Super Celebi is somebody who's in my chat quite often who only uses Golem Clone. If you're watching this, hold that. Ewiz, I'm gonna put in C tier. Like, it's an okay troop, and I think it maybe has been used slightly a little bit more because the Eye Dragon the Eye Dragon evolution has been getting used a decent amount, but still not very good. You only really see it in P.E.K.K.A. Bridge spam, and honestly, that's really the only archetype I can think of that really uses the E-Wiz. Yeah, just not all that great in my opinion. Goblin Gang, I'm gonna say, is on par with the guards. I feel like if you want a 3 elixir swarm card, both of these really can get you the job done, especially in log bait. You see the Goblin Gang like all the time, but it's not exclusive to log bait. The Goblin Gang, like you will see it in Goblin Drill. You know, I use it in my Mortar deck. Like there are certain decks that do use the Goblin Gang. I think it's just a really solid value you get from the 3 goblins and Spear Goblins that it spawns out. So yeah, pretty solid. Dart Gob, honestly, call me crazy, I think it's an A tier right now. Like it seems like a lot of the log bait decks that are running around are using Goblin Gang, Goblin Barrel, Dark Goblin Princess, and aren't running a big spell. And because of that mass loggable unit spam, it's getting like the Dark Goblin is becoming like a huge staple in log bait right now, especially with the evolution that just seems to get, like, I think it's such an underrated Evo. It can either be very good or very bad depending on the matchup. So yeah, Dark Gob Evo, or sorry, not Evo, the regular Dark Goblin is an A tier. It's just very cheeky unit that can be so annoying to deal with when you're playing up against it. Battle Ram, honestly, I've seen better, like the Battle Ram I think has seen better days. I'm gonna put it in C tier. I like you only ever see it in bridge spam, and I don't think bridge spam is in like the best place in the meta. Like you see maybe like Boss Bandit or P.E.K.K.A. bridge spam every now and then, but I don't know, I feel like there's too many decks that maybe don't hard counter this, but I think the Battle Ram has seen better days in terms of win conditions. There's just too many decks that are going around right now that I think the Battle Ram aren't the best against right now. So yeah, for that reason, I'm throwing it down into C tier. Executioner, I think might be another C tier 5 elixir card. The Evo Executioner, I think underrated, is probably one of the best evolutions in the game. The regular Executioner, not so much. It's okay. It's nothing crazy. It's, you know, it does extremely well against Lava Hound, but you have seen some Hog EQ decks kind of reappear, and even like Ram Rider, like Bridge Spam decks like that sometimes do use the Executioner in it because of that Evo that is just so freaking good. And so yeah, Exy, I think it's just an okay troop. It's not. It's definitely better than the Witch. I'd say you can. I think most of the time get more value out of the Exy than the Witch, but it's still not amazing. Like I said, the Evo is fantastic, but the regular Executioner is a C tier in my opinion. Bats, I'm actually gonna put in the A. It's really good in cycle decks. Pretty exclusively used in cycle decks, and sometimes like you see it in E-Golem, but yeah, I like the bats. I like using them and like popping them into a bunch of different decks. You'll see them in sometimes giant decks, even like Miner, Skeleton King, Mortar. That whole archetype uses the bats. Honestly, you can kind of throw the bats in a lot of different decks and kind of get away with them. They're just a nice 2 elixir cycle card. Cheap air defense that is just quite nice to have. Heal Spirit, honestly, I'm gonna pop it into D tier. It's another one of those cards I rarely ever see. I think it's used in like Goblin Giant, Sparky. I think sometimes uses that, but even that deck I feel like uses other spirits sometimes as well. So yeah, D tier spirit, in my opinion, is really not all that well. Another card that I see only really in one archetype, and that's Bridge Spam, whether it's Ram Rider or Battle Ram. I'm gonna put the Bandit in C tier because I feel like even sometimes Bridge Spam decks will swap out the Bandit for the Boss Bandit because it's literally just a better version of the Bandit. And so yeah, it's just okay. Honestly, it's just okay. Like there's times where you can get it to work, but yeah, like I said, I think Bridge Spam right now you're not seeing it as much in the meta, especially not with the Battle Ram or the regular Bandit. I'd say there's like evolved versions of Bridge Spam with like Xe Ram Rider, Lightning, and either the Boss Bandit or the P.E.K.K.A. So yeah, Bandit, C tier for me. Night Witch, I'm gonna pop the Night Witch in C tier again. One of those cards you really only see in one archetype, and that's Golem Beatdown, whether it's the regular Golem or the Elixir Golem, and it works very well in those archetypes, but that's about it. You rarely ever see it in the Giant anymore, or really anything else. But when you do see it with like Elixir Golem, for example, because that's usually what you see it with, like Night Witch, Elixir Golem, Skeleton King, Goblin Machine, decks like that, it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. So that's why it's a C tier for me. It really only works in one archetype, but in that archetype it's quite good, and I feel like that's most of these cards that are in C tier that this is what I'm classifying them in. Skelly Barrel's up next. I think it's another C tier. I know it's a few C tiers in a row, but I honestly love the Skeleton Barrel in Mortar decks. I think that's what it's mainly used in. You rarely ever see it in anything else, like paired up with the Skeleton King, stuff like that. But yeah, it's a C tier for me. I don't know, man. Like, I think some people still don't really know how to play against the Skeleton Barrel, which is hilarious. But yeah, C tier for me. You can get a lot of damage, or you can get absolutely none if your opponent has like a good counter for it. So yeah, C tier. I love the Skeleton Barrel though, but I think I gotta be fair. Flying Machine is actually gonna be a B tier for me. I was considering C, but you see it in a couple different decks. You see it in Royal Hogs, like Fireball Bait, with like sometimes different variants of that, being with the Royal Recruits and the Zappies, or just Royal Hogs, Flying Machine, and some other different support cards. But you also see it in Lava Hound decks, which is very, very interesting. And this thing is just an annoying card to go up against the Flying Machine. It always has been since it's come out, because that range is just like at a perfect spot where if maybe too far to the left of your tower, too far to the right, it'll just completely ignore them both and go straight for your tower and get a bunch of damage. So yeah, Flying Machine, I find, can be a very, very brutal, punishing card and unforgiving a lot of the times if you go up against it. Cannon card is a D, even after the most recent buff that it got, where it gave it a little bit more damage. Since they took the shield away, this card is not good at all, bro. It's bad. In fact, it is bad. Cannon card, hashtag bring back the shield on the cannon card. I'm not gonna put it in F. I might have put it in F last time after they gave this card a rework, but I'll put it in D just because you do sometimes see mortar players using it, but it's just not good, bro. I hate the cannon card now. Mega Knight. I'm gonna put it in D as well, man. I know a lot of you mid-ladder menaces are gonna be, what? What do you mean D? This card is broken. They need to nerf the Mega Knight. I've gone against so many Mega Knights as a mortar player. Keep in mind, usually you'd expect tankier big units like that to counter me completely. I've gone against so many Mega Knight decks recently and have beat, I'd want to say like 90 to 95% of them. Mega Knight, especially the evolution, underwhelming, bro. They're not good. They're really easy to counter a lot of the times if your opponent doesn't support it properly or doesn't have any cards with it, like the Ram Rider, the Battle Ram, to get advantage out of your big boy Mega Knight coming down the field. But it's not good, man. Mega Knight's in a bad spot in the meta. Nobody uses it, literally nobody, even though it can be pretty solid against certain decks like Battle Ram and like Goblin Drill. It's just, it really isn't all that good. That's just my opinion. But I don't know, man. Mega Knight, I could maybe see it being a C tier, but I'm keeping it in D, bro. There's like barely anyone using it. Zappies, I'm gonna throw in C as well. I know we're kind of filling out these mid tiers a little bit right now, but I don't know, that's just like what a lot of these cards are feeling for me. Zappies you really only see in those Royal Recruits decks with the Royal Hogs, and it's like I keep saying, I feel like the C tier is mainly filled with cards that are really only used in one archetype and are good in that archetype, and that is kind of what the Zappies are. Like, you really only see it in Royal Recruits, Royal Hogs. It's good in that archetype, but you don't really see it anywhere else. Barb Barrel, I think it's a C tier spell as well, man. Honestly, again, another C tier, but there are some, like, actually, nah, you know what, I'm gonna pop it up into B, because I feel like there's a couple different uses for Barb Barrel, and a couple different decks do use it. I see it in Eagle. There's certain Siege decks like Expo that use it. Maybe even some Giant decks use it. Yeah, I don't know. Barb Barrel's okay. You usually see it in tandem with like a Rage or a Zap, maybe even a Log. I doubt it. You'll see it in a Log. Maybe it's like Barb Barrel Tornado Rage or Barb Barrel Rage Lightning, stuff like that. So usually when using the Barb Barrel, you're using some other kind of small spell, maybe even like a delivery. But yeah, I'll pop into B. It's not bad and can get you a lot of value with that little barb that pops out. The regular hunter, now this is interesting. So I believe with the most recent balance changes, the way it worked was they actually gave the regular hunter a slight little buff and the hunter evo a huge nerf. So I know we're only rating the hunter regular card, but I have to consider the hunter evolution, because the main reason the hunter was used was for that extremely broken evo, and I'm honestly gonna give it like a C now. Like, I think I would have had this in A or S even before the most recent balance changes, but now that the RG isn't as viable, it's not as good, and that's really the only thing you see it in is Royal Giant deck. So I've given it a C here, and it's because the RG is simply not as good, and neither is the hunter. Royal Ghost, honestly, this is like a B tier for me. It's like classic in bridge spam decks. Basically, if you're going up against bridge spam, the Royal Ghost is in it, whether it's Battle Ram or Ram Rider. But you even see the Royal Ghost sometimes in other decks with the Giant, maybe. Sometimes Goblin Drill will throw in the Royal Ghost. I like the Royal Ghost. I think it's got a powerful ability to make it go invisible, and you can force out a lot of like extra elixir out of your opponent that they don't want to use, because this thing can get so much damage and is forced to respond to. Magic Archer, honestly, I think is like a B as well. It's very good, can get you a lot of value and a lot of damage. Actually, I'm gonna give it an A. I think the Magic Archer is really good. Never mind, just a B tier. I love the Magic Archer, and it's so satisfying lining up a bunch of units onto their tower and getting a nice lineup to even like win a game with the Magic Archer. You see it in Bridge Spam, you see it in Goblin Drill. Sometimes like even tankier decks will use it with like the Giant. And yeah, I like the Magic Archer. Very fun card. Rascals, I'm actually gonna give, I think I may have given it like a D last time. I'm gonna keep it in D. Like certain log baits have started picking up the Rascals. Sometimes you see the Rascals with the Dark Goblin, the Princess, or like in just log bait with the Wall Breakers even as well. And I don't know, it can be an annoying card, but I don't know that, like, I think the Rascals haven't been in the meta in forever, and it's for a good reason, man. Like, they're just not very good, honestly. Yeah, I mean, it's 5 elixir, basically knight and archers, but the archers are loggable, you know, so I don't know. The Rascals are just plain and simply not amazing. Even like log bait decks, like there's a slight uptick in the Rascals with log bait, but I think they've kind of taken them out for the most part. There is like a Rascals deck going around log bait, but it's not as popular as a lot of the other log bait decks that are going around. Snowball, I'm actually gonna pop into A tier. Dude, this card, since it got like a buff a couple seasons ago, has been used in Goblin Drill so much, and honestly, I've even seen it in stuff like Expo, Minor Balloon, Graveyard uses it. The Snowball is just so freaking good right now, and you know what? I'm actually convincing myself to pop into S tier just because of how many decks use the Giant Snowball. Just the fact that it can slow things down as well as knock things back is so nice, and can kill things like skeletons, spear goblins, bats. It's so versatile, so good. I think this Giant Snowball is one of the better small spells in the game, along with the log. So yeah, definitely try it out if you haven't already. Next is the Recruits. I honestly refuse to rate this card. I don't want to rate it. I really don't. I hate the Recruits so much with a flaming passion. Unfortunately, I think I am going to give them like a for real rating, and I think it's like an A. I'm not going to quite put them into S, just because I feel like if you do know what you're doing, you can counter them really well, but there's certain matchups of the Recruits feel broken, bro. It's just the fact that they go across the whole arena, and they are just so annoying. And there's a couple different variants that you see the Royal Recruits. Sometimes you see Royal Recruits with the Mighty Miner and the Hog Rider. Sometimes you see the Royal Recruits with the Royal Hogs. And there's just a bunch of different ways you can play with the Recruits, especially with the evolution. So yeah, I hate going against the Recruits so much, and so I'm popping them into A. Royal Hogs, I think, is an S tier win condition as well, though, especially when you pair these two up together, Recruits and Royal Hogs. It's a very, very annoying combination, and the Hogs are just, I think, honestly, usually like very solid. Like you see Royal Hogs EQ, Royal Hogs paired up with the Archer Queen, and Royal Recruits, decks like that just always seem to do well. Sometimes you even see like Royal Hogs cycle decks do pretty good, but yeah, it's another one of those win conditions I think are just hard to counter, especially like I feel like there's just very few cards that are in the meta that counter it very well. Maybe the Bowler, Valkyrie, and Dark Prince are all like very good counters, but sometimes if you split lane them, it's hard to defend both sides, you know what I mean? Goblin Giant, I'm gonna put it in D tier. I'll put it in C tier, because Goblin Giant P.E.K.K.A seems to work pretty well, and see, even with the Sparky, you see it every now and then. But again, it's one of those cards, especially with the evolutions, that just aren't the greatest. I'm even gonna put it into D tier, bro, because like Goblin Giant is just not in a great spot at the moment. Don't see it too often in the meta, and it's not like useless, don't get me wrong. I'm gonna pop it back into C tier, because I'd much rather use a Goblin Giant deck than a Golem deck, but P.E.K.K.A and Goblin Giant are in a good spot in the meta, in my opinion. Same deal like Electro Dragon. I'm popping this. Honestly, I'm considering even F tier, which is kind of crazy, but I'm gonna pop it into D. Yeah, again, not in a great spot in the meta. You used to see it in E-Golem. Sometimes Lava Hound decks would run it. Even like Golem Beatdown, but all of those decks have either subbed those out, like for the Electro Dragon, subbed it out for something else, or just aren't in the meta anymore, right? So, yeah, E-Drag, I thought you would get a little bit more playtime with Inferno Dragon Evolution being a thing, but you don't really see it at all. We're getting into the home stretch here. I feel like this video has been going on forever. These tier list vids usually aren't bad when I'm just doing the evolutions, but when I'm doing every card in the game, they take a while. I feel like I've been here for like 2 hours, but Ram Rider I think is another really solid win condition. I'm gonna pop it into A just because I don't think you see it as frequently as Hog or Royal Hogs, but Ram Rider, another one of those win conditions that is very difficult to stop if you don't have the correct cards in your deck to deal with it. It can basically guarantee you damage a lot of the time, and honestly it can also be used defensively because it has that slow effect with the actual rider. And so yeah, it's an A. Honestly, wall breakers I think is an S. The wall breakers are so annoying. I don't know how they can nerf the wall breakers, but oh my god, I see them in not only log bait, but you see them in like minor control. You see them in like royal recruits for like the split lane pressure. Wall breakers are everywhere, and it's another insanely good win condition for only 2 elixir. They provide so much value and can get you a lot of damage a lot of the time. Wall breakers, oh my god, please nerf them. Earthquake, I want to pop into A. Hog EQ is very popular. Royal Hogs EQ is very popular, and Earthquake I think is just in a very good spot right now, especially now that the Goblin Hut got a little bit of a nerf on its health. Earthquake actually can fully counter the Goblin Hut. Actually, maybe not fully counter. I think it leaves on like 1 HP. So yeah, that's really solid for the Earthquake. And yeah, Earthquake, very good spot. Really solid 3 elixir spell. Goblin Cage, I'm popping into C. You see it in Roy, like sometimes you see it in the recruits and Lava Hound decks. For the most part, that's about it. It can be good in those decks, but sometimes it can also be pretty bad, you know, so it's very matchup dependent. And yeah, I'm gonna slap it in C. Fisherman is another S tier, bro. I think the Fisherman is so good no matter how many nerfs they do to this thing. It just always seems to be in the meta, especially with the Royal Giant. But I've actually seen the Fisherman in other decks as well. Not only with the RG, just because it gets so much value so much of the time. Freaking Fisherman, man, it's an annoying card, especially if you're using something like a Hog Rider. Just guarantees you King Tower and a lot of other nonsense. Elixir Golem, honestly, I want to pop Elixir Golem into a B. I feel like there was a season, like a couple seasons ago, where the Elixir Golem was like the king, and you saw it, like I said earlier, with the Night Witch, Goblin Machine, Rage, a bunch of other stuff, but I feel like I'm not seeing too many people use it anymore at the moment. And yeah, I don't really know why that is, because I feel like the Eagle can be very annoying and very good, but it's also very easy to get punished using the Eagle if you get like if your opponent just has a monster defense against a massive push. But it's got insane 3 crown potential, and yeah, it's just, it can be very annoying, but also sometimes very bad if your opponent knows what they're doing to defend it. Battle Healer is a D tier for me. I'd consider F if it wasn't so good in Elixir Golem. But like that's basically the only thing you see the Battle Healer in is E-Golem decks, so that's why I've got it in D. Firecracker, surprisingly, I've actually got an S. The Firecracker is everywhere right now. So many different decks use the Firecracker. I've even seen people sub out Evo Witches in like RG decks and stuff like that for the Firecracker because it is just so good. The evolution's amazing, and the Firecracker is such an annoying card to deal with, not only in pros, like in top ladder, but even in like mid ladder, especially mid ladder. I feel like it's super frustrating to deal with. Firecracker is just all over the place in the meta right now, and I think is one of the better ranged cards in the know what it is. Easy to get King Tower off of this. It's still so good. I feel like the pros certainly outweigh the cons with this thing. Delivery, I'll pop into C. Really only seen in like Royal Hog Cycle. That's about it for the most part. But it is very good and can get you a ton of value. Sometimes the delivery, I might even pop into B because honestly, I feel like it could work in other decks and be insanely amazing. The freaking Royal Delivery can get you crazy value. So good. Skelly Dragon, I'll pop into C. You don't really see the Skelly, like you see it only in Lava Hound. And that's about it. And even sometimes they don't have the Skeleton Dragon. So honestly, I'm gonna actually put it into D tier. Honestly, that might be a little bit like a little bit hard on the Skeleton Dragons, but I don't know. I don't think they're in the best spot in the meta right now. Like I said, it only gets used in Lava Hound, and even in Lava Hound, you don't see it too often. So yeah, Skeleton Dragons D tier for me. Electro Spirit, I'll pop into A. I actually are seeing it a little bit more often, not only in RG, but even cycle decks sometimes prefer the E Spirit over maybe an Ice Spirit or a Fire Spirit because of it being able to reset the Inferno Dragon evolution. And so yeah, we'll keep it in A. E Giant, I think it's another B tier win condition along with the RG and the Eagle. It's like kind of one of those off meta decks that you'll see every now and then. I honestly rarely see E-Giant, but I feel like in the certain decks that it is ran in, whether you got the Golden Knight in it, the Witch, a Tornado, whatever you have in it, it can be punishing if you don't have the correct units to stop this thing. So Electro Giant, I'll pop in B. I think it is definitely better than some of these win conditions we got in C tier. So yeah, B seems like a good spot for me. Mother Witch, I'll put it into C tier as well. It's like, I love the Mother Witch. I think it's a very fun card to run, but you don't really see it too often, eh? It's like maybe sometimes use an Elixir Golem, maybe some kind of Fireball bait with the Royal Recruits and Royal Hogs. That's about it though. The Mother Witch is just kind of okay. I love the Mother Witch, but not really all that good. Wow, home stretch here, guys. We're actually coming up on the champions finally. Goblin Drill, I'll give it, I'm honestly gonna pop it into A tier. I'm very close to putting it into S tier. I think it just works so well with the Snowball. You see all kinds of variants of Goblin Drill decks being used. You know what, I am gonna use it in S tier. Goblin Drill gets used a lot in the top rankings of Clash Royale, and I honestly think it's just very good. You can use it with the Snowball, the Log, even like Poison I've seen get used with the Goblin Drill to get you a bunch of damage. And yeah, if your opponent doesn't have a good counter for it, and you can get, and if you get a little bit tricky with the Goblin Drill placements of the actual drill itself, it can get you a ton of damage. And like, man, it can be very annoying to go up against. Berserker, I'm actually surprised I'm gonna pop in B tier. I've seen a few people run the Berserker in a few drill decks, and even like certain cycle decks with like the Hog and the Royal Hogs, stuff like that. They buffed it not too long ago, and surprisingly, it's getting used, which is pretty funny. It's like a nice little 2 elixir mini tank that can slash down some other mini tanks and maybe provide some offensive support. It's actually not bad, which I'm surprised. When it first came out, it was so terrible, but I kind of like it now. It's a lot better than it used to be. Let's go. Next up is the Rune Giant, bro. This thing's F tier, man. It's not been the meta since it was first released, and since they nerfed it to where, like, when it dies, the units don't stay enchanted anymore. It's basically useless. Nobody uses it. It's garbage. Doesn't get any damage. It's bad. Rune Giant sucks. Demolisher does not suck, though. I'm gonna actually pop it into B. They recently buffed it so that I think it lasts a little bit longer, and it's like bomber, or like it's like running phase where it sprints towards the tower and tries to, like, basically, for lack of better terms, suicide bombs itself into it. And I honestly think it's pretty good. I like it. It's really good against log bait. You know, being able to take out little spear goblins in one hit. Only two, I think, 2 shots regular goblins, but I think it's still very solid. You'll see it in drill decks for the most part. sometimes I'm seeing this card in so many different decks. I see it in like Goblin Giant P.E.K.K.A with the Goblin Machine. Eagle loves the Goblin Machine in it, and it's just a disgusting card, bro. It's the fact that it has good melee, and the rockets just seem to hit everything that you want to take it out with. Like a little can one-shot a Firecracker, one-shot a Dark Goblin, stuff like that. It's disgusting. The machine is really nasty. Goblin Curse. I'm actually gonna pop, surprisingly, maybe a little bit higher than people expected, in C tier. I've seen it actually get used a little bit more. Obviously, you usually see it with the Rage or the Zap, maybe even all three, which is a nasty combo. But Eagle decks have been using it. I've even seen it in like random like giant decks and stuff like that. I don't know, man. A Goblin Curse, if you're not careful, depending on what you have, it's one of those cards that can either be disgusting against you or completely and utterly useless depending on the matchup you're up against. So even saying that out loud makes me want to throw it down to D tier. So you know, I am actually gonna put it into D, but sometimes it is freaking disgusting, man. Honestly, Phoenix I'll pop in C. You don't really see it very often, honestly. The Phoenix, you see it maybe in a Lava Hound deck every now and then, but I don't know. The Phoenix just doesn't really get used as much as it used to. I actually really like this card. I think the concept that it has like a little egg that it spawns out when it dies, it can come back to life if not dealt with properly, is pretty cool. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really see the Phoenix all that much. Bush, I'm gonna pop into B. I've seen this log bait deck going around with the Boss Bandit, the Wall Breakers, the Dark Goblin. That is just so toxic, and the Bush is disgusting in that. And honestly, I feel like it should get a little bit more love and a little bit more use, because the Bush is just gross. Like those little Bush Goblins get way more damage than you expect them to, and so for that, I'm gonna keep popping in B because they're disgusting and log bait right now. Void, I think, is another D tier spell. It just doesn't ever get enough value. Like it doesn't ever get the value you expect it to. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the Void. It's just really not that good. But here we go. We're finally into the champions. So let's just speed round the champions, so I can finally start editing this video. I feel like I've been literally recording for 2 hours, but honestly, it's been kind of fun, and I'm hoping you guys are learning a little bit from this. Golden Knight, I think, is probably one of the best champions in the game at the moment, with the new buff that it got, new rework that it got, that can dash behind, or like dash back behind where it was dashing from. It's so good. It is so freaking good. The Golden Knight is in a really good spot in the meta, and you do see it in a couple different variants. Hog Rider, Cycle, Royal, like Hog EQ, Royal Hogs, Goblin Drill. So many different decks have picked up the Golden Knight since its new rework and buff, and for good reason. It's a very good champion. Archer Queen, I'm actually going to put into B. I think it's another pretty solid champion and can be very good. I don't think it's as versatile as the Golden Knight, but it can definitely cost you a lot of elixir to deal with this thing. I'm actually going to throw it up into A. It's a really, really solid champion. Really good champion. I don't know if it's quite on S tier, but it is still probably one of the better champions in the game as well. You see it in a few different archetypes. Bridge Spam sometimes uses it. Royal Hogs uses it almost all the time. Royal Recruits. It's very good. Archer Queen, very solid. Skelly King, I'm gonna pop it into C tier, honestly. The Skeleton King. You really only see it in Mortar, and then there are certain graveyard decks that use it with the Evo Witch when that was banging, but I don't know, it's just kind of one of those mid-tier champions. Sometimes it ends up being really good, and then sometimes your opponent deals with the ability like it was nothing, and so yeah, it's just kind of okay. It's sometimes good, sometimes bad. Mighty Miner, I'm actually gonna I'll put it in B tier. You see it in control decks, Miner Poison like that. I've seen it in some Goblin Drill decks, but I think Goblin Drill decks usually prefer the Golden Knight or even other champions rather than Mighty Miner, but I still think it has its place in the meta, and I still think it's pretty solid. I still think it's pretty solid, but there are other cards that do fill the Mighty Miner's role, sometimes a little bit better, but Mighty Miner is still very solid, and I definitely think it holds its place in the meta. Monk needs a nerf, bro. It's an S tier champion still, even though it quite seen as much with RG. People are using it in other decks now, which I hate so much. You see it in like Graveyard sometimes, obviously Royal Giant. I've even seen like balloon decks use it. Oh my god, get this card out of the game. It is so annoying to go up against, depending on the deck you're using, but usually the monk will get some sort of value. The Little Prince, honestly, I think is still the worst champion in the game, so for that, it's an F. Actually, not even an F though, it's still like a decent champion. I still just think it's the worst champion in the game, even after the buff it got on its ability, but the buff really didn't do a whole lot, like barely did anything in fact. So yeah, I think it's like most people only use it just because it gives you 3 card cycle, but it's still just not very good. It's not a very good champ. Goblinstein, I think, is only slightly better than the Little Prince. I might even pop it. It's like a D or a C tier for me. Pop in C tier. I think it is better than the Little Prince, but I don't know. I think like for what it is, just like 5 elixir just seems like so expensive for me a lot of the times. And then plus if you're using the ability, that's like a full 7 elixir. I don't know. Goblinstein really isn't in the meta all that much anymore. And I don't know, it's just, sometimes it gets you a ton of value, but then sometimes your opponent will just like lightning it down, for example, and so you get like literally 0 value out of it completely, and so, I don't know, it's very situational in that, and for that, it's gotta be S tier. And last but not least, we've got the Boss Bandit. I think this is another A tier champion. I wouldn't quite put it on S tier. I think I've maybe overrated it a little bit in the past, but since I've started getting used to the Boss Bandit and its interactions, like obviously it can be a very unforgiving card and can punish you a ton if you don't counter it properly, but now that I've been getting used to the Boss Bandit, I still think it's a very, very good champion, a very punishing champion, but it is a little bit easier to counter now that I know what I'm doing against it. Like I said, very good. It's still an A tier, but I still think the Golden Knight and the Monk are like the best champions in the game most of the time. Either way, guys, that took a long time, eh? That is my tier list of all the cards in Clash Royale, every single one in the game. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll kind of scroll up and down so that you guys can see. Do you disagree with anything I've done in this tier list? Do you agree? Tell me why, and we'll get maybe some conversations going down below. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, hit subscribe.